afternoon, everyone. I know it's a very, very tight, tight timeline because of church for those who go to church, and then maybe people that also have other engagements. So sorry for the short time, short feedback as to when to start. But again, that's life. So today, hopefully, won't take more than 45 minutes. I know we spent about 8 minutes waiting for other people to join. So the goal for today is just to discuss on, building a successful career. Let me see if I can minimize this. Yeah. So building a successful career in software development. And like I said, hopefully it doesn't take more than 45 minutes. And within that time, I would like to, get questions, get your feedback, and things like that. So you can feel free to interrupt me anytime. And then you can also, if you don't want to interrupt me, you can also drop questions in the chat room. I think somebody's on mute. Like trying to... Hello, I can hear some feedback. Is someone trying to speak? Okay, so I'll just go ahead. Yeah, so before we start, I'd just like to recap, what we have done so far in the past few weeks, and then, tie that into, how we can use some of the, knowledge that has been shared with us in building a successful career in software development. I know the focus for us is backend development, but again, some of what I'll be sharing today cuts across any field. So maybe before I even start, let me just give a brief background about me. So I currently work as an engineering manager, but prior to that, I've worked in some field in some organizations as a full stack developer. In my previous organization before I got promoted to an engineering manager, I was employed as a senior backend engineer. And then prior to that, I worked as a full stack engineer, and then prior to that, I've also had some experience doing server administration, which is now called, DevOps. So I have some experience with, administering server, Linux servers, right? So like I said, some of, what I'll just be sharing cuts across whatever specialization you find yourself in. But I would say that for today, you just look at it from the lens of someone that is in backend development. Yeah, so like I said, I would like to recap what we have done so far. So I know some of the previous tutors have covered a whole lot of concepts and also shared their own experience. We've gone through things like the developer roadmap, what it is or what it takes essentially to be a developer, what would be good for you guys to know to become a backend developer. And there's also share some feedback as to why you might want to be a backend developer, the types of various backend developer roles, and even the impact of a backend developer and engineer within an organization, right? I also that they've covered things like essential programming language. I think Python, I know someone introduced you guys to Python, why some people prefer Python to maybe Java or C# and the likes. We've also covered things like, concepts like database, whether it's SQL or NoSQL. I know there's also been mention of things like GraphQL, REST and the like. So there's a lot of, there's a lot to know, when you're working in when you're working within the backend engineering space, so it might be overwhelming, but I'll just say that, little by little, I'm sure some of these things, depending on where you are, if you're already somebody that is already working in maybe a specific field, or you're just getting introduced, with time, anyways, a lot of these concepts will become familiar, and then you would also get to know about them. So like I said, you guys have been thinking through a whole lot in the past few weeks, and the goal for today will just be to tie in those things that we've discussed with the other tutors, how we can tie that into how we go ahead to build a successful career in software development, right? So the goal of today is not to also be too technical. It's supposed to be more conversational, and then I also would like to hear from you, but essentially from my side, it will just be to share some insights into what I think is important if you want to grow his career in software development generally, and then, like I said, we'll just focus on backend specifically. Yeah, so just move to the next slide. So what's our agenda for today? So what we'll just be looking at is why software development. Next thing we'll also look at a concept I use a lot, which is called focusing. Yes, so I'm sure a lot of us know the word focus, but in the context of, how you can optimize that word and how you can, use it in your day-to-day life, and even whether it's work or whatever. Then also specialize, right? So how we can then, so I want to be a backend developer, but how do I specialize in a specific area? I would also discuss that, and then how you can also improve on your learning, and then tips and tools to do that, and then even choosing the kind of work you do, right? So those are just some of the tips that I'll be sharing today that I believe are, I would say, have helped me on my own journey so far, and I believe would be helpful to all of us, in our various careers, depending on where we are in the journey, right? So just to confirm, I hope you guys can still hear me and you can still see my screen. Hello?
I can hear you, sir, and I can see your screen, sir.
No problem. Great. No problem. So that voice sounds like somebody I know. I'm not so sure. Yeah, so like I said, if you have any comments or questions or feedbacks, you can drop them in the chat, and then we'll spend hopefully 10, 15 minutes just discussing some of those questions. So I would really, really appreciate if I can get some questions or feedback as we progress. So yeah, so like I said, I was going to start with the why, right? So I'll throw this question out, and I hope that I get some questions in the chat room. So why would anybody want to be a backend software developer? I know that, for a whole lot of people, it will be, at least there's the financial benefit to it in terms of, me, the kind of jobs I'm seeing out there and the kind of remuneration that comes with those jobs. So that is very, very true, right? And for some people, it could also be that, this is something that, so for example, for myself, I started from server administration. I did some scripting, and then from there I did full stack development, and then from there I now I've now landed in backend specifically. So throughout my journey, I've sort of just moved one by one into now backend development, right? So yes, there's a monetary side to it, but there's also the, is it something that you are interested or passionate about, right? So the reason why, I love this word why is because, at least from my own POV, I believe that for you to be successful at anything, there has to be a convincing reason why you all want to spend your time and effort doing that thing, right? So if, for example, you want to become a backend engineer, I can tell you for free that there's nobody that is out there that has been successful as a backend developer that just does the regular 9 to 5 and close their laptop and go by, and then, work is done, right? For you to be successful, you're going to spend a whole lot of hours that is outside what you are being paid for, either to learn or to practice or to do things that, help you on that journey. So you have to essentially, if it's monetary, that if you just know that, what, this thing, I'm just doing it because of there's money there, you also have to be realistic to yourself that this is why you're doing this thing. So that the days that the going gets tough, you can always have it at the back of your mind that, okay, you know what, at least I'm seeing I'm getting the benefit from doing this thing. So yes, I have to stick to doing this thing, right? So I always, just always want to start with that. Why are we doing this thing, right? So even, for example, when one of the guys that is organizing this reached out to me, who I had worked with in the past, that, oh, they're trying to do this, that you would like me to, speak on this, right? For me, right, yes, there's the benefit. So what do I, so I asked myself, what do I stand to gain, right? So there's the benefit that, what, this video, is going to go on social media. There's going to be some buzz. There's going to be some traction on my profile, whether on LinkedIn or GitHub and the likes, right? But there's also the benefit that I would also be impacting somebody with one or two things that I'll be sharing today, right? So there's always a reason, because now I had to spend like hours to prepare some of these slides and think about also what I wanted to share. So just not that I just wanted to do this thing. Otherwise, I'll just, downloaded something off the internet and just shared with you guys. But for me to take that number of hours to, spend to go through this thing, I had to be like, I had to also justify it for myself that, what, why do I want to do this thing, right? So if, you have decided that, oh, I want to become a backend developer, you always have to think about it that, is there a reason why? Because like I said, there's so much that you need to know, right? Which I'm sure that some of the guys had shared previously with you. So if you're going to be spending months, even years, studying to be good at something, how you have to convince yourself. Otherwise, why can't you just go and, do something else that you might also be able to make money and that won't take you as much stress? Because again, anybody that, I'm sure the guys that have, spoken to you in the past few days will have told you that for you to be successful at this, it is very, very demanding and tasking, right? So there's no way you now want to spend hours doing something that, aside even the, monetary gain, you are going to be laboring so much for, right? So it's always good to ask ourselves why, do we want to do whatever it is we want to, um, whatever it is we want to do. And how did I come into this, what led me down to this part of always asking myself why before I get to do anything, right? So just a quick backstory. So a few years ago, I think about 4 years now or thereabout, I was working in, before I switched jobs, I was working in, where I was working at before. Initially when I started, the job was exciting. I loved what I was doing. I got, uh, employee of the year for like 2 years back to back. I got promotions, 2 promotions. My salary had increased and all of that. But, towards, I think probably like 2020, 2021, I was not fulfilled anymore because it was becoming very routine, right? I was not learning anything new. It was just, working on the same thing. There was nothing that was exciting about it, right? So in the process of, trying to change jobs, I think I spent about, I'd done some interviews, they didn't go well. And then, I decided to, okay, you know what? Let me go and start, practicing my data structure and algorithms, getting up to speed on, what it is out there, right? So during that period, I think I, registered for LX. I was in the LX course. I also registered for one course, and during the course of that journey of me, taking that course, just to improve on so primarily then I think I was doing a bit of C sharp, but it was primarily the JavaScript that I was using within that organization. So, I also just wanted to improve on, my programming language skills since I knew a lot about these languages. So during that process, I took a course, and then during that course, I was introduced to these two books. And these two books have been very, 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 very pivotal to, where I am today. And the reason why I say that is that, and, I'll give examples of why, right? And the reason why I say that is that they've helped me to, understand, for example, how the human brain works. For example, how you can efficiently learn something. You know, some of the things that, are common knowledge, but, there's a scientific fact to some of those things. So I'll give an example shortly, right? So, I'm just tying this to the first slide that, yes, there's a reason. It's always good to ask why, But what led me down that path was reading these two books, which I would recommend for anybody here to read, right? So, for example, the one that says how to learn, right? So there's something common that I'm sure, if depending on where you are in your career, you will have heard. So if, for example, I'm working on solving a problem, a technical problem, right? For anybody that has a little bit of experience, one of the things you hear is that if you are cracking your head on something too much, right, after a while, and I'm not able to solve it, go and take a rest, right? I'm sure you might have even heard, I think one of the famous physicians that, slept under an apple tree and then the apple fell on his head and he was able to define gravity, Newton, right? So there's actually a scientific reason why, when you are working on something, you go to sleep. Why, after taking some time to rest, you find the solution to those things, right? So there are two ways your brain works when you're studying. There's the diffuse mode and then there's the focus mode. So like I said, a lot of this is just going to be theoretical and not, what's it called? Not technical, right? But if you understand some of these things, the way your body works or the way your brain works, it'll be easy for you to take those things and then apply them to your day-to-day, right? So I was saying that there are two ways the brain works when you're learning. There's the focus mode and then the diffuse mode, right? So today, when I'm solving a problem at work, I'm trying to, create a solution or create something to solve a problem. And I've been at it for hours, right? At that point, I'm using my focused mode to try to solve that problem. But a lot of times, one thing I learned using this book was that if I, try to solve a problem for hours and I'm not able to solve it, I need to now activate my diffused mode, right? Meaning that I need to take a rest or I need to take a walk or I need to go to run or something, whatever it is you're doing. The reason why your brain works that way is that your brain also needs to take a rest. And then during that time of your brain taking some rest, your brain, unknowingly to a lot of us, is actually working to now map out the solution unknowingly to you. So yes, you have thought about something, this problem this way, but one of the ways in which the brain works, right, is that
I don't join, don't reach there.
Hello, somebody speaking. Okay, so I'll go ahead. So one of the ways in which the brain works in the diffused mode is that whatever knowledge you have gathered in that focused mode, your brain then helps you unknowingly put things in place together, right? So prior to reading this book, I never thought of it like that, right? That why would I go to take a rest and then after like 10 minutes, what I've been trying to solve for 6 hours, I'm able to solve it in 5 minutes. So a lot of times when I'm solving problems now that are very difficult for me, once I always just remember that listen, I've been at it for like 2-3 hours. You know what? I've used enough of my focused mode brain. Let me just pause, take a minute, go and do something else. Let my diffuse mode brain help me plot all those things together, and then I land at a solution, right? So those are some of the hacks which I learned in that book that has now helped me such that when I'm doing things that are difficult, I know how to take a break, relax, or I know what to do, right? Another technique that the book also talks about, which is very popular now, is using the Pomodoro technique, which whereby when you are learning, you don't have to spend like 2 hours endlessly learning. If it's 5 minutes that is your active or your best time to learn, spend 5 minutes to learn, So the book has a lot of, knowledge as to how you can learn to, get better and everything. And how does it relate to you as backend developer? As a backend developer, there are a plethora of things you need to know. You need to know about DNS. You need to know about HTTP. You need to know about how servers work. You need to know you need to learn about performance. You need to learn testing. So there's so much that you need to know that, if you are not good at how to best learn, and you don't understand how your brain works, right? It will be hard for you to be good at it. So that's one of the things I learned, in that book. And then mastery is also, a key book as well. I'll talk about that later. But those two books are very, very, for me, I believe are very, very crucial, if you want to be successful in backend development, right? And like I said, to succeed at anything requires endless practice. So, identify what you get excited about and zoom in that specific area, and then understand and effectively utilize your happiness chemicals, right? So, yeah. So sorry, I just need a water break. Sorry. Yeah. So the first point says that, to succeed at anything require endless practice, right? Which is, I got from that first book I told you about, Mastery, right? So if you look at any profession today, I'm sure a lot of us will probably watch football or basketball or whatever, right? To be good at anything. So let's say Messi, right? Messi has been playing ball since he was probably 10 or 11. I don't know. I can't remember how old he's in now, but I'm pretty sure he's probably in his 40s. So he has spent 30 years, right, doing that thing. Or let's even say that before he became a superstar, he had spent about over 10 years, right? Before he chased them Ronaldinho and go away. Right? It's the same thing for backend development. You cannot just say you want to get into that field today and you want to be good at it today. It is impossible, right? You have to learn, you have to practice, right? You have to do a lot of work on yourself. So you have to, there's so much that you need to know, right? So it's not just something that you want to get into today and then 2 years you'll be good at it. No, right? It will take a decade or more, right? So the earlier you are in your journey, the better it is for you. So unfortunately, there are people that, again, so if you look at all the debate between Messi and Ronaldo, there are some people that Messi is more talented than Ronaldo, but again, both of them, at least to all of us, we can see they're as good as some of the best players we've had in the past 20 years, right? So there are people that, some of these things come easy too, and some people will require more hard work and practice for them to be good at it. But again, if you have the talent but you do not practice, you can never be a master. It's impossible, right? And that's part of what that other book I was talking about, Mastery, speaks about. So I recommend that we read it and it will be beneficial for us. So the second point says identify what you're excited about and zoom in. So again, I'm sure there are over 50 languages out there, right? There's Java, there's C#, there's Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, there's Ruby, there's Shell, a whole lot of them, right? You cannot try to learn everything and be good at it, right? It's impossible. It's always good. So even within the backend field, right, you can write Go, you can write Rust, right? You can write Java, you can write Python, you can write Ruby. There's a whole lot of languages. So what I would advise is pick one of those languages. Look for the one that you best understand. What I usually recommend for people is start with a language like Python or Ruby because they are more beginner friendly. And then, once you understand the syntax, your if statements, your if else, variables, and the likes, you can now advance into learning other languages, right? But, if you say you want to go and learn C, but you don't even know how if works, I can tell you are in for like a nightmare because, or even how to declare variables or how pointers works. C is unfortunately is not as forgiving as some of these newer languages. So it will be very difficult if you want to say you want to pick up such a language, right? For backend development. Some people primarily use C, right? A lot of times when I'm doing like when I want to change jobs, I usually like to use C to practice because it helps me to remember some of the concepts I've learned like in the past. So it forces me to remember because when I write a program, I'm getting like a null pointer error or a memory overflow or something like that. I remember, oh, this is why this thing is a bad idea, right? So there, benefits to everything. But for someone that is just beginning, it's always good to start with a language like JavaScript, Python, or Ruby because they are less forgiving. And then, lastly, I said understanding and effectively utilizing your happiness chemicals, right? So one of the books I talked, the books I spoke about earlier, this one that says, learning how to learn. One of the authors also spoke about, how the chemicals in our brains or in our body, like dopamine, endorphin, serotonin, how when they are very high, people learn best and usually do good work then, right? So a lot of times you hear developers says, oh, I'm in the zone. What essentially they mean by that is that, all these chemicals I just spoke about, they are in, the brain has released them and then the body feels good, right? They like what they are doing. They're excited about what they are doing, right? So the question now is, how do you, get your body to release those chemicals such that you are doing something that you're excited about, right? Or you are doing what you love, right? So usually what I advise people to do is, if it's, that this thing, I'm just interested in it because it's money, then you have to psych yourself and your brain to be like, this thing, I know, so if I finish doing this thing, this is what I'm getting. I'm getting this maybe 2 million naira salary, or I'm getting this 5 million naira contract, whatever it is. So that way you are psyching your brain, and then your brain is excited. But something you're not excited to do, it's impossible for you to say that, you would ever, do it properly, right? And one of the, for the last point, right, one of the things I would say that you should be careful of is being burnt out, right? So, you're excited about the work, I'm sure maybe at least somebody's on this call that has worked with me before, right? There are days whereby, we'll work from morning till like maybe 1 or 2 a.m., right? It's because there's excitement about the job, right? But again, doing that for like a long, lengthy period is not advisable, because again, ultimately you are overworking yourself and killing yourself. So there needs to be like a balance in between, I just want to keep, I'm excited about this thing, I want to get it out there. You also need to like, take some time and rest. So there's usually the need to always balance whatever it is we are doing, right? Funny meme. So like I said, I think I talked about this before. Do you have to be a genius? Not really, but as long as you're able to, follow the steps here, practice endlessly, identify what you're excited about, you would be a master without necessarily being a genius, right? So in the example I gave, Messi is a more talented player than Ronaldo, but they are both the best footballers that we've had in the past 20-something years, right? One is more talented, but one is very good at practicing and has been able to hone that skill. So it's the same thing for you wanting to be a back-end engineer is also, how can I hone this skill? Improve on it, and then, ensure that I'm able to leverage what I know to get to whatever destination or whatever goal I've set for myself. So again, same thing, so what I've been speaking about has just been focused. So I'm just wrapping it up, right? I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So it's the same concept. If you keep doing something, you'll be so good at it that, than somebody that is saying today, if the person is doing Java, tomorrow the person is doing Ruby, tomorrow the person is doing Python, tomorrow the person is doing C#. It's good. You are not going to be a master in anything. You'll just be running all over the place. Like if you pick anyway, or I think I'll cover it in the next I think one of the next slides about specializations, right? But it's always very, very, very important that when you are in the journey of learning, pick something, focus on it, and then be very, very good at it, right? Like I said, you cannot know all the programming languages at the same time. So today I can tell you for a fact that I know Ruby, Java, and JavaScript very well, right? But I can tell you I've learned in some courses, I've done like functional programming like Scala, I've done Kotlin, I've done Go, but I'm not as confident. So I know them, right? If I've done Perl, I've even written applications that are in production today with Perl, right? But if you ask me today that I should wake up, I'm going to default to either Ruby or Java, because those are things that I use on a daily basis and I've been using them for over the past 5 years, right? So I've learned them well enough. Perl, I just use them because, again, so I just have to be good enough. So you don't want to be a good enough developer, somebody that just knows enough of this thing to be able to do something. You want to be able to know it such that you know it very, 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 very well, right? And that's where, you focusing on one thing. So as you're learning on this journey to become, a great backend developer, you always have to, okay, what is the goal for me? So one of the things I like to do, so before I became a developer, right, what I usually do was I went to look at the companies I wanted to work at, right? So I looked at Money Point, and I didn't work at either of these companies, but I'm just giving an example. I looked at Money Point and I looked at Shopify, right? Shopify uses Ruby. Money Point uses Java, right? And I looked at their job descriptions, right? And then I now did, okay, you know what? What do I need to learn to be able to do job description 1, job description 2, job description 3, job description 4? I need to learn these things. And then I went ahead to now go and master those things, right? So I don't work at either of those companies today, right? But if I want to work at those companies, I have what it takes today to work at those companies, because whatever, well, obviously I had most positions, but as at the point when I was doing that, I'd already learned enough, and I now applied those things I had learned as well in the job I was doing. So it's always good. Is someone trying to talk? Is there any questions, any feedback? Okay, so I'll proceed. So it's always good.